ABAP objects skill set, OData and CDS. So I have given a small brief on this. So these are mandatory skills, prerequisites for getting into RESTful application programming developments, because there you will experience the complete developments, the whole end-to-end development will be taking place by using object-oriented ABAP syntaxes only. So you must become as much as you can gain out of this skill set on ABAP objects, that is object-oriented ABAP, because the way you are writing the code, your custom logic, your custom business logic, while developing the applications in the RAP framework is completely based on the ABAP object syntaxes only. So you must become familiar with those things. And secondly, what is OData? Usually how OData works, the various URL query patterns, and also the differences. Is there any difference between SAP OData services and non-SAP OData services? If yes, if there is a difference, what it could be, we will understand. So when it comes to ABAP objects, ABAP objects is a official name SAP named for the object-oriented programming style of ABAP. SAP simplest calling it as like ABAP objects as the concept. This is nothing but the object-oriented programming style within ABAP. Here, the word I'm using as a style means basically when we are doing something, we do follow some style in doing that thing. Let me give a simple example. Earlier, when we used to construct our homes, like at our father age, if you think about 30 years ago, how we used to construct a home for our family when we are, okay, nowadays forget about this skyscrapers and all these things. When you think about constructing one individual house, right, independent house, 30, 40 years ago, how do we use it to construct a home? At our father age, if you look at that houses, first they use it to construct one, they use it to dig the floor completely in a square format. They use it to make some rock basement, right? And on top of the rock basement, or okay, not about your father says, let's go for one more little older age, your grandparents says. So because you're kids, so I can compare with my father age, but for you, definitely you compare with your grandfather age. Then one rock basement, and on top of the rock basement, they do construct some walls directly. They do, and they use it to put very thick walls, right? So more than 1 feet of thick walls, because the whole strength has to lie on the walls only. Then directly on top of the walls, they use it to make some roof, maybe with different sort of materials, or they use it to make some slabs also, like concrete slab also. They use it to make up, but it is completely getting laid on the strength of walls only. That's why they use it to construct the walls, very thick walls, because the entire weight has to put on the walls itself. There are no pillars, columns. What actually we are using iron, concrete mixing, and all these things. That was not the mechanism that available at that times. Then they constructed one house. They were happy. Now they wanted to make one more floor on top of that. They wanted to construct another floor on top of that roof. It is just, you think like it is a concrete flat slab only they have made it. Now they wanted to make one more room on top of that building. Can they construct?
No, I think it will fall. Like we can in the earlier structures, we cannot.
No, we cannot. But somehow they taken some risk. They reduced some weight, and they made one more room just with very lightweight material. They made one more room. Slowly, somehow they adjusted, and finally they arrived also to that extent. You just think like that. Then can they make a third floor on top of that? Definitely not, because the big question will come arise like, can it able to sustain? isn't it? Will it able to hold that weight? Even if they construct one more, thick walls also on top of that, basically the base itself cannot able to hold that weight. But of course, we had no other way. We had to construct our homes like that only, because by that time, that was the only best mechanism available. So that we used to construct like that only. But after a period of time, there is a change arrived. The way you are constructing a building got changed. Now, how we are constructing the building is all about, like, instead of making the walls first and instead of making the thick walls, we are building the columns first, the concrete iron combination columns, the pillars we are making. Then once the pillars made, directly we are putting the slab, right, the roof on top of the pillars. So the entire roof is just now laying on the pillars alone, right? After that, we are constructing the walls. Even now, that walls we are just making simply with one single line bricks also. Just in 5 inches of brick wall itself is enough, because the wall is just only for the purpose of separating the rooms. The whole strength of the building is laying on the pillars, but not on the walls. And now you wanted to make one more floor on that. So what is your comfort for making one more floor on this building? Can you make it?
Yes.
Yes. You are confident. You are not double checking, like, will my building able to sustain that weight or not? No, definitely we can increase. Now you can extend your pillars to one more floor. You can make it. You can make again another double bedroom flat. Direct entire ground floor you can again reconstruct as a first floor as well. Then on top of that, you wanted to make one more floor. Absolutely, you can go ahead. The change, the way you are constructing the building, and because of this mechanism come to available, definitely we are following this one. Why? The reason, because we are getting n number of advantages in this style, in this way of making. What are the advantages are we getting? Can you list out some of the advantages by comparing these two methodologies of constructing a building?
Strength.
Strength.
Durability.
Durability, exactly. Strength or durability, almost like synonyms, but definitely, you can able to save the cost. Definitely, there is a huge amount of raw material you are spending over there. You think that iron and cement? No, definitely not. There you have to construct around 1 feet to 1.5 feet width of walls. Earlier old buildings, if you see, you will be able to see that huge width of walls you can able to find out there, because even then also. So there it is taking longer time to complete the building. It is taking huge materials. Definitely, it is having the impact on the cost and the durability of the building and extensibility. So in technical terms, extensibility, if you want to extend it further more with some more features, like some more room to add on, there is a big question about that, to what extent will that extensibility possible in that one. And if you wanted to make some changes in the building, suppose somebody said that, hey, you change this room from this side to that side and change this door from this side to that side, something like that. Then if I try to make some changes, my entire building also might have a chance to get collapsed. But here in my new way of styling in building my program, certainly whatever I can remove a wall, simply I can remove the whole wall and I can make a new wall which is not having any impact on the strength of my building, because the style, the way we build this new style of infrastructure, new style of making that building construction is different here. So you can build it in less time, you can save the cost, you can save the time, the building durability, the building extensibility are all the advantages. When these number of advantages are just appearing in front of you and available to you, will you still go with the old style of construction? Definitely not. The same way, the application developments also you can compare of. Application development, when we are building, when we are writing the coding, for developing an application is actually is equal to constructing a building. Constructing an application is equal to constructing a building. You will plan that, you will think about the requirement accordingly, you will start write code, and then you will start build things, and step on step, you will finally complete the whole product. In the earlier days, we used to have so many programming languages like C, COBOL, Pascal, whatnot. So many programming languages were there in 1970s, 1980s, 1990s. Eventually, so many languages also got introduced. But the initial age of programming languages, if you talk about, they used to follow one kind of programming style. That is called procedural programming. That particular programming style is called procedural programming. In procedural programming, Your focus always is on the functionality, and that is one style of development, one style of making the code, writing the code. Okay, and that is called procedural programming. And people started noticing some drawbacks in the procedural programming. Hey, we are actually expecting some kind of we arrived at a particular requirement to make some changes in this, but that is leading me to make some changes in so many places. Basically, the reason is because of the architectural style you followed over there, the procedural way of programming. And if you wanted to make some extensions to the programming, you know, here or there, somewhere it is again failing. The existing process itself is again getting impacted because of adding the new feature or the new functionality in your existing application. And it is leading to write so much of code redundantly in multiple times. The same piece of code we are going to repeat in multiple places because to address to the required functionality. These are all the reasons these are all the disadvantages. I mean, these are all the drawbacks basically that people noticed over the period of time because when we started using Valo, we will come to know what are the things which we are not able to arrive, not able to achieve, which we are missing out. Then they listed out that these are all the drawbacks which we noticed by following this style. So we have to make a new style. We should switch to a new programming style. Exactly, that was the time in 1980s. The people, the IT community, the software community arrived at a different style of programming that is called object-oriented programming. So it is a style basically. That's what it is called, object-oriented programming. Object-oriented means, orientation means the focus. Our focus will be on the object, not on the procedure, not on the job, but on the object. We will give the complete attention to the object. We will build everything around the object. We will think about the object. We will construct the object. We will build everything around the object. Object always will be the center point, will be the focusing point. This is called object-oriented programming. It is a style and lot of advantages. I just said, like in the new style of building construction, here you will find a very good durability. You can complete the code in less time, and you can able to comfortably add new features, new functionalities after some time after the initial development get done, and the program with less number of code, with less number of lines of code, you can able to make reuse of a lot of code, repeat it instead of repeating the code. Like you can reduce the redundancy, and in overall, it is bringing up so many advantages together. Those advantages they have listed out in more technical way, like encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism, and persistency and testing. There are like that some headings you can find. So these are all the advantages which you can find out. These are all the advantages which you can gain by following this new style. Definitely, who is ready to miss these advantages? Who still don't want to follow the object-oriented programming, even after they come to know that these are all the advantages which we are getting, which we will miss if we don't follow this. Definitely, once if they can able to taste that, then definitely they will able to follow this. They will definitely follow this object-oriented programming only. Got it, team? So that is the introduction. Once this new style of programming is introduced by the IT community, then all the programming languages invented after that period became object-oriented programming languages. Because definitely that is the best. That is the best. So the new programming languages which born after this period, all the languages not born in 1970s only, right? Like Java kind of languages are born after the late 1980s. So all the languages which born after this object-oriented programming principles are introduced, then all the languages by birth they're born like an object-oriented programming languages, like .NET, like Java, like Python, whatnot. Those are all the languages we call them as like object-oriented programming languages. And by the way, let me ask you one question. So just a general question only. May I know who is the senior here, Java or ABAP? Which is older language, Java or ABAP? No
ABAP.
problem.
ABAP, I think.
Okay, what about others?
Yes, ABAP.
I'm familiar with Java.
You are familiar, but what do you think? Like, which is the oldest language, Java or ABAP? What is your guess? What do you think?
The oldest one is Java.
Java, I think.
Good.
For me, it's Java.
For
So
you,
that
it's
I
Java.
think fourth generation language.
Actually, ABAP became like a fourth generation language, but ABAP started in 1970s team. By that time, Java not born actually in the world.
Exactly.
When SAP started their ERP products in 1970s, right? So by that time itself, they have developed their own programming language, and they started their product developments like R2 and R3 also on this new programming language. By that time, some of the programming languages which were available, which were existed by that time, are about Pascal, COBOL, C. So SAP basically blended all that languages. They have taken best of all that languages, and they have developed their own programming language because they are very clear on their target. They wanted to develop some kind of enterprise grade applications. For that, definitely they need some best of the best programming language, which they have not seen in any of that other languages which were there by that time. So SAP first made their own programming language by, as I said, like by blending all the languages by that time, and they come up with their own language called ABAP. Then they started developing their products, all their business applications by using their ABAP only. So the ABAP started its journey in 1970s itself. So when ABAP was there in the market, when ABAP was existed by that time, Java was not there. So definitely because Java born in 1980s, so definitely ABAP is senior than Java. Of course, here not matter of senior or junior. I'm just giving that heads up. And secondly, when ABAP actually started, when ABAP actually introduced, developed by SAP, by that time, even SAP also doesn't know, or no other company, because it was not there at all. Object-oriented programming, no one knows in the world at that times. At the times, people knows the only style, procedural programming, not the object, because object-oriented programming was not even there. That word object-oriented, that kind of mechanism was not there at that times. So when ABAP born as a language, it was a procedural programming language only, as like all other remaining procedural programming languages. But eventually, when the object-oriented principles are added, introduced, and when other languages are born as object-oriented languages by birth, and as they are getting their own set of advantages by following that new style of coding standards, new style of developments, SAP and all other companies also realized that it is the time we have to switch we have to inject those new features also into our languages. We have to make our languages also to support object-oriented programming. That is how SAP added injected the features into ABAP, and slowly, step on step, one after one. I will give you that history path. ABAP slowly become like a complete full-fledged object-oriented programming language. So when ABAP born, initially it is not object-oriented programming, it was a procedural programming, but as I said, eventually it became a object-oriented programming. Now the complete object-oriented features are 100% supported by ABAP. We can able to achieve that. It is as equal as like your Java and other object-oriented programming languages also. There is no question about that. There's no doubt about it. Right? And that concept SAP named as like ABAP objects. So that is what we are learning. Okay, Tim. So that is about a small introduction of object-oriented programming. Now let us come to the more into technical. So what is called object-oriented programming? How do we identify that? How do we differentiate that? And what is the difference between procedural programming and the object-oriented programming? In object-oriented programming, as I said, like the emphasis, the focus will be on the object, I said, right? Here, object means the entity, the real life entity on which you are basically developing your application. That is the meaning of object. For example, you are developing some you are developing some software for Indian Railways. So when you are developing some software for Indian Railways, for helping the Indian Railways to operate their business operations like ticket bookings, cancellations, reservations, and this and that, and all these things. In that particular requirement, who is the center point? What is the real entity around which you are basically trying to establish a certain functionality? In that particular scenario, the train actually is the real entity. You can see that physically, yeah. Every functionality is basically getting executed around one train. There are multiple trains, right? But train is the center for focusing point. All your reservations, all your cancellations, all your inquiries, all your bookings, everything is various functionalities, but moving around your object. Here, object in the sense, the real life instance that we will build in our application as an object. And we will write everything around that object. First, we have to identify that. What is the object in this case? And then how do we create that object? How many objects do we need to create? As many trains we have, that many objects will get created in your program. As many trains you wanted to handle, that many objects you will develop in your program, and you will play around that. Each object is actually indicating one instance, one physical instance. Exactly, one physical instance. Object is your physical instance. You should be in a position to imagine that always. Okay, on the other way, you are developing some application for TCS employees. When somebody taken the interview, and after that, offer letter released, and then they onboarded, and then they assigned to project, and then they got promoted, and then they got resigned, and so many things happened over a journey for 5 years of an employee in a company. So for doing all these things, for establishing all these things, you are asked to develop some application. Of course, data will be there in database. Some tables you will create, that is different. But in the program, how things will get managed, how the functionality will get managed, you will develop some screens, you will create some tables. Apart from that, the logic, the place where you are building the logic, when we are talking about that. So in this requirement, each employee who is basically physically existing will be treated in your application as an object. Exactly, as an object. Suppose one car race, one car competition is going, right? So many cars are participating in that race, and so many people are basically making some, bookings and all things, right, on that racing game. Exactly. In that program, lot of things, lot of logic you are going to build, where in that the car will be your object. Exactly. So we have to identify what is actually called object, and how do we bring that into our coding? How can I bring that physical instance, physical existed object into my coding? You can able to imagine on your screen that some cars are moving. You can able to imagine that some employees are there on your screen. Object is always the physical instance, the real instance. And around that, we are building the coding. That is basically the definition for object-oriented programming. Then how do we create that kind of objects in our program? Whether it is in Java, ABAP, .NET, no matter what team, this concept always remains the same. Because object-oriented programming is not belongs to Java, it is not belongs to ABAP, or it's not belongs to any other programming language. It is one universal standard that IT community has developed. It is an open standard. It is not a proprietary thing that only this company owned all these things, and this particular language only do all these things. No. It is an open standard. It is a style of making the development. Still, even whether you are following that style of making or not, that is personally your choice. But definitely, still, see, again the same way. If you still wanted to construct the home in the old style, that is up to you. But definitely, your your seniors, your leads may not accept the way you are writing the coding unless you follow the. Hey, why did you write the code like this? Why did you not follow the object-oriented styling? If you make like this, it is very difficult to maintain this program. If somebody wants to come and make some changes in this coding, it leads to so many inconsistencies. First of all, why did you not follow object-oriented coding style? Your team lead will come and directly ask you. And SAP also started switching all their existed applications, existed coding, which they have developed in the earlier days, completely into object-oriented style of developments. And all the future developments definitely will get happen on this way of developing your application. So how do we create objects in our program? How can we bring that real life instance into our coding, into our applications? That is possible by knowing two things, just only two things. And I'm not only sharing these things, team, because I'm trying to elaborate little more, because to make your minds very clear on this, because this is your future. For next 10 years, every day of your life is going to happen around these things. That's the reason I'm putting more emphasis on this particular subject line. I'm trying my best actually to inject these concepts into your minds. You can able to imagine that. Visualization is very important. It is just not like a theoretical definition to read 2 lines of definition somewhere and then do start work on things. The moment you can able to realize things, you can able to, visualize and sensible that, you will see that magic. This is very important also for all of your upcoming learnings, projects, project developments, project deliveries, etc. In any of these languages, if you wanted to learn about, if you wanted to create objects, and if you wanted to play around objects, 2 things you should know. Only 2 things, nothing more. If you know those 2 things well, you are masters in object-oriented programming. It's such simple. Only 2 things you should understand completely to play around the objects. What are that? Number 1, classes. Number 2, interfaces. If you know about these 2 things, you're so perfect about object-oriented programming. The same thing you will see in any language also. Okay. So as I said, 2 types of concepts you should understand to create objects and to play around the objects. What are the 2 things? Number 1 is classes. Number 2 is interfaces. So what are these classes and interfaces? Both are pretty much same, except a small difference between these 2. And why we have like that? There is a purpose. That is the reason they have made these 2 things available for you. Purposefully, intentionally, they have created these 2 things so that you are going to get some advantages. At a point in time, you will understand, you will doubt that, hey, why do we need interfaces? Only classes I am finding everywhere, classes are good enough. Still, even why do I need interface? There is a purpose. It is bringing up a very, very, very good feature, especially when it comes to the polymorphism concept. For that purpose only, they have added this concept of interfaces also. It is equally important, so don't neglect that. But so equally, we have to learn about these 2 things, classes and interfaces. Okay, we will come to the interface concept a little later. First, let us talk about the class. What is actually class? Okay, first I will ask with the question. Yeah, so team, someone of you try to summarize what is class?
A collection of objects.
Collection of objects.
Class is a blueprint of objects.
Class is a blueprint of an object. To some extent, that is good. About collection. Yeah.
Yeah, class is a collection of objects that is define the particular object. Like in the class, we have to define the methods and variables and all.
Methods and attributes. Okay.
Yeah, attributes.
Methods and attributes. That is good. That is all. Correct. You can collect collection of objects. See, when it comes to collection of objects, I'm not sure how many of you remembered. There is a concept in the programming languages called arrays. In C language, C++, you might hear, in Java also, you might hear about arrays. Did you hear about arrays?
Yes.
What is array?
Yeah, it's also a collection of a similar type of object.
Similar type of values, okay?
Well,
Then can I say again the same thing? I'm giving the same line I'm saying about classes also. Does that mean array and class are same? Because someone said that class is a collection of objects. Array is also a collection of objects of same type. Class is also collection of objects of same type. When I
not but class is not similar type of object. Means we can define any type of object there in a class, like different type of method and different type of variables out there.
No. Different methods we can have, different attributes we can have, but from the class, whatever objects you are creating, they're all of same type. All objects are of same type, which are deriving from the same class. Anyhow, I will come to that. But array and class still, according to you people, are sounding like the same thing. Are they both same? No. Okay. No problem, team. So let me give you one simple comparison example like this. Objects are the real instances, I said. For example, in your program, you are dealing about 3 employees. Employee 1, employee 2, employee 3. 3 employees, you just think like you are dealing with 3 employees. You are comparing whose salary is more. You are comparing whose age is more. And you are comparing who is senior, surrounding some things. So you are playing around 3 employees in your program at some point of time. That means how many objects are moving around there at that moment?
Object is 1, I think, and object is employee.
No. See, I told you the requirement is that in your program at a point of time, you are actually try to handle, you are actually comparing certain things between 3 objects. I mean, between 3 employees, I said, right? Employee 1, employee 2, employee 3. There are 3 employees you are comparing. Among these 3 employees, so who is senior, who is junior, and who joined when, like that, those things you are comparing at a moment. That means in object-oriented terminology, you are handling about 3 objects. So team, you think like 3 employees means, are the same person or 3 different persons?
Different person.
Exactly. Physically, there are 3 people. You think object is a physical instance. Object is exactly the physical instance. What are the instances we are dealing with in our life, at our home, at our surroundings? Those only will come and play in your program also as objects. When you are dealing with the 3 employees, each employee is an independent one. Each employee is having his name, his age, his date of birth, his date of joining, and etc. That all will be handled in your program like 3 objects. Now you are comparing 3 objects. You are sorting 3 objects. You are putting who should stand first and who should stand behind. You are arranging 3 objects. You are playing with the 3 employees. You are equally playing with the 3 objects. Those 3 objects might get created from the same class or different classes. What is the relation between class and object? We will come to know. But first of all, your one car race gaming is happening. So 10 cars are actually, running on the race court. 10 cars are moving. Now car number 5 came to first row. Again, car number 3 came. Again, car number 7 came to the first place. Again, race is going on. So 10 cars are going with different speeds. In between, car number 7 damaged. Okay, it met with some accident. Now 9 cars only there in the race. 9 cars are moving on. And again, among that, the car number 9 came to the first place. Again, it's changing. So in your program at that moment, how many objects are racing?
5 objects in this car. Total number of cars means if the car is 5, then object will be 5.
No, I said 10 cars, no? They're participating in the race.
10 cars, yes. If the car is 10, then object will be 10.
10 objects. So among that one car damaged, now in your program, how many objects are there?
Hey, ZaranTech now offers SAP corporate training. That's right. Train your workforce in SAP with our comprehensive program. We offer customized courses, certified trainers, and hands-on labs for both individuals and businesses. Our standout features: bespoke training, fully configured servers for practice, in-house materials, and a dedicated LMS. Plus, get session recordings and 24/7 support. From functional to technical modules, we have got it all. Choose ZaranTech for SAP training and watch your team excel. Learn, upskill, succeed with ZaranTech.
One car in the race, one car met with some accident, one car not there in the race now. Now that means one object also gone from your program out. Now your program is continuing. Now your program is continuing with how many more objects?
9.
9 objects, exactly. See, team, try to visualize that 10 cars are playing in your code like 10 objects. Now one car damaged, it's not in the race anymore. That means your program also has only 9 objects. Now your program is moving on. Your program further moving with only 9 objects. Among that, whichever comes first in the race, that object you will announce, that object, that driver name, that car number, that all that information is there in that object. That many employees, that many cars, that many trains, whatever it is all called an object. Each object, I just said like a ball, you think like a ball, like a physical object, right? Each object will have some information belongs to it. For example, earlier example, I said like 3 employees. So 3 employees you treated like 3 objects, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So team, I did not commit to class and interfaces. You don't get confused. I'm going in a very settled order. You just to follow me, you will understand that. I have not yet spoken anything about class yet. We will come there. We are trying to understand what is actually called an object. Okay, now we are working with around 3 employees by comparing who is senior, etc. That means currently you are playing with 3 objects. Will every employee will have its own employee ID, employee name, or all they have same ID, same name?
Different.
Different.
Each
So
employee have different.
right. So like that, because that is my personal property, my name, my surname, my age, my date of birth, my CTC, right? So my Aadhaar card, my PAN number, this is all my personal information, my own information. As a physical entity, this is my data. Like that in your program, each object will have its own data within it. If you open one object, like you think like object is like an egg. You think like one object is an egg. If you open that egg, if you open the shell, you will find some matter inside. You will find some content inside. Like that, every object, if you open the object, if you break it, and if you open the shell of the object, you will see some content inside that object. What is that content? That is the properties, that is the values belongs to that own object. That is nowhere related to any other object separately. Those are called attributes of the object. Like my ID, my PAN number, my Aadhaar card, my name, my surname, my date of birth, my date of joining. These are all my own attributes as a physical person. When you goes to a train, the train number, starting station, destination, weekly on which days it is traveling, how many bogies, what is the seating capacity, how many second ACs, how many third ACs, how many general compartments are there. That is all the complete personal information about one particular train. That means that is called attributes of one object. As many objects you will have, every object will have that kind of information within itself. Those are called attributes. You got me?
Yes.
So if you break and open one object, what will you see inside?
Attributes.
Attributes means
Whatever the content they have,
exactly the values.
Continue.
So every attribute
properties.
properties. You can call it properties. You can call it attributes. Like what are the property names? Every property has to identify by name. So attributes will have some name, and every name will have some value. For example, ID, my employee ID, name, my name, surname, my surname, PAN, my PAN number, and DOB, my date of birth, DOJ, my date of joining. So these are all the names of the attributes. Every attribute will have some corresponding value. And this is the information will be there in every shell, in every object. Every object will have this information commonly within itself. There is no relation, there is no copy pasting, okay? There is no common storage. Every object will have its own matter within itself. Those are called attributes or properties of that particular object. You got me, team?
Yes, sir.
So in your program, when you are playing with the 10 objects, will all 10 objects will have its own set of data within themselves?
Yes, I think so.
Yes, no doubt.
Yes.
Don't think like I asked a very logical question. No, nothing like that. Yes. Answer is simple yes. 10 objects will have their own set of data. Then to play with some data, to play along with that data, play in the sense, I wanted to change the name of the surname of, I wanted to change the surname of third employee. First object is okay, second object is okay. In third object, for third employee, surname is wrongly entered somehow. I wanted to change the surname of the third object. So then which object I should open? Should I open the first object or should I open third object?
Third one.
So third one I should open and I should go and I should erase the surname and I should write a new surname and again I should lock that object. I should again attach that shell. You just think like it is a concealed cell. I opened it and I erased the surname which is wrongly written there and I have entered the new name and again I closed it up. Exactly. We can do that. We can change that. But to keep the data little safe, secure, what actually we are doing is that for doing the job, we are not actually allowed to do break the egg. So once if you break it again, you cannot stick it back. So break the egg again while changing the surname, other things also might get impacted. So because of to keep the data in that object safely, what actually we are doing is like in every object, there are some helping assistants also there. There is one assistant guy. You can call him. He is also there inside the object. Follow me carefully, team. He is also there inside the object. And what I can tell him, hey man, please come here. Can you please go and change the surname of this employee? You tell him. You give the new name. He will go and safely erase the surname and put the new name there over there. You will say finally, thank you. Thanks for your help. You can say that. You can say to that person. That means there is a very, very secured storage room is there. You just think like that thing. There is a very secured room there in your office building. Okay. And you are all not allowed basically get into the room and do changes and everything. There is a person standing outside the room. You wanted to keep something inside the room, but at the same time, you are not directly allowed to go inside and to see what is there inside and to change because you may do any damage also there. Instead of that, you go there. There is a person who is standing at the door. You give that item and you request, hey, can you please keep this item inside? He will say, surely. You will take your phone and you will go and he will keep it inside. And again, whenever you wanted that item, again, are you allowed to go into the room and then bring out your item? No. You again go there. You tell to that person, hey, can you please bring my phone back? He will go inside. He will bring your phone back and he will give it to you. But there is a person, an authorized person, who is not letting you to directly enter into the room, but doing everything for you. But he is the authorized person only to do that. So which are basically restricting you for not entering into the room and then do whatever damage that you may do. You may not intend it to do, but it may happen. So I don't want to allow you. Instead of that, let that person, authorized person who is there to go inside, do things, keep the things there inside the room and then nothing but inside your object and bring anything from the inside the object back to you. But you are not allowed to do directly into the object and keep something directly in the object or bring out something directly from the object. You think like object is that secured room, but there is a person to do the job for you, right? Exactly. Those are called here as methods. We call them as methods. You will be having some methods for every object. In every object, I mean to say, in every object, you will have that methods. Method is like a executable code, some piece of code. What is one method is doing? You give the surname, new surname, it will change the old surname to new surname because that is a job which is already coded in that method. That is the method only for changing the surname. There is another method. If you call that method is just like a program to call, man, just a statement to call. If you call that guy, that means there are multiple authorized people there in front of the room. They will do different things for you inside that room, like that. So simply here, another method is there. If you ask that guy, he will bring out everything what is there inside the object to you and show it on your screen. You want to see what is the name, what is the date of birth, what is the age and everything? You are not allowed to enter into that room. Instead of that, you ask that guy, hey, can you please bring out to me everything what is there inside that room? Yes. He will tell that this is the ID, this is the name, this is the age, this is the date of joining, date of birth of that particular object. Like that, every object you have to treat like every room, separate room. And in order to handle your attributes, handle in the sense either to change them, read them, write them, anything, store them, any operation you wanted to do on the attributes, there are some methods to do that job. Like that, we are keeping the data very safe, very secured inside your object. Of course, there is no mandatory rules to follow that. You only can directly go, you only can directly change anything you want, you can do that if you make your object like that. But that's not recommended. That's not the right way. We don't do our development like that. We always keep the highest importance to the data inside the object. So we will keep it always in a very private zone so that no one can able to touch it unless only the methods. The methods are very, very properly coded so that they will take care of every necessary action in order to handle your attributes. Let me give you one simple example. Suppose one employee age is there as like 55. Employee age is there like 55. It is wrong. Actually, his age is 45. You are directly allowed to go and change it. You just think like that. Then you know what will happen? You will go there. By mistake, what happened is instead of changing 45, while changing, you made it like minus 45. What is the meaning of employee age is minus 45? Is there any meaning?
No.
Is it not a big blunder in the data consistency, data code? Because by mistake, it happened that you changed the value instead of 45 to minus 45. Does that mean that he is going to born after 45 years? No, definitely not. One car is going, car speed currently 30 kilometers. Now you increased the car speed. Now car is going to 60 kilometers speed. Now suddenly that value you change it to minus 20. Will a car go with minus 20 speed?
No, it can't.
No. Can a car have a minus 20 speed? Even if it goes in reverse order also, still even it is 20 kilometers speed only will say. We don't say minus 20. Agree?
Yes.
Yes.
So there must be a there must be the consistency to the data. Data always to be dealt with so much of sense, so much of care that methods will ensure. Do you know? If you give minus 20, that method will not go and change that speed. It will check the logic. If you give the age minus 45, instead of you change it, you have to give the new value to method. You call one method, hey method, change age. The method name is change age. Like that, you will have some methods. How many methods you will have? Depend on how many you are creating. But when you ask that method, can you please change the age of this employee? And if you give minus 45, will it go and change it? No, it won't change it because it is doing all the checks, all the validations. It will say, hey, why did you give me minus 45? Do you think I am a fool? No, I am not going to change that. Give me the proper age. It will return back, but it will not change. So still that old value 55 volume will left over there. When you give the proper value, then only it will go and change the age of that employee. If you give 35, 45, it will change. If you give 550, it will not change. Because that method is coded as such. That method is coded to validate the input provided by the user, check the value of the data, then only change the values of the attributes. Otherwise, no. This is the concept called encapsulation. One of the technical advantages we have talked about, right? Encapsulation. Encapsulation means keeping the data secured by not letting anybody to go and change the data, but only letting the methods handling the data inside the object, so that methods will ensure always the data is consistent and persisted properly. We can achieve that level by following this way of development. This is the advantage which we cannot get in procedural programming, but which is possible to happen in object-oriented programming. One of that advantage is called encapsulation. That is called encapsulating, capsule. We are capsulating the data in a very, very, very strong shell. No others can able to touch that, but only methods. And methods cannot do everything whatever you asked for. They are very smart. They will do only the allowed things only. By the way, we are keeping our data always in a safe and secured manner inside an object. This is all about inside an object. That concept is called encapsulation. Like that, you can find the other benefits like inheritance, like polymorphism. So many benefits you can able to experience when we are really using the power of object-oriented programming in our application developments. So it is not something like a very heavy subject team. You just try to summarize these things more in a. That's why I'm trying to compare these things with our very general things happening in our life. I always compare not only this, so many such kind of comparisons you will see in my explanations. I always connect the things to our very, very close things in and around us, so that we can able to imagine that things. The concept will clearly get into our minds. That is how object will work. Each object is a physical instance in your life. Each object will have its own data, properties. My property is only mine. My ID, my PAN number not belongs to anybody else in the world. That is one object will own. Like that, every object will have the data within itself. And to handle that data, there are some methods. Methods are nothing but, each method is nothing but like a mini program. A program which is very well coded, in which all precautions are already taken care, and that methods only will handle that properties. That methods only will allow to touch, access, change, or delete the values of the attributes, the information of the attributes. By the way, the data always will kept in secured manner. This is the concept called encapsulation. So every object is having two things within itself. What are that? Every object is having two things within itself.
Attributes and values.
No, attributes will have values. Attributes and methods. Attributes means that is the name. So every attribute will have its value. Attributes and methods. ID, name, PAN number, Aadhaar number, these are all called attributes. Each attribute will have its corresponding value. And to play around that attributes, we have the methods. Is it clear, team, for everybody?
Yes.
Perfect. Perfect. Now the question will comes in, how do we create these objects? How can we create these objects in our program? Can I directly create 3 objects, 4 objects? No, we don't create the objects. We cannot create the objects directly in our program. Objects we cannot create directly in our program team. Then what is the way? This is the way. Before you create an object, for creating an object, first of all, you have to build one molding. Let me give this example. Ganesh festival, we will celebrate Ganesh festival, right?
Yes.
9 days festival, Ganesh festival we will celebrate now. Vinayaka Chauthi or Ganapati Chaturthi, we call it like. When you go to market, you will see some Ganesh idols. I mean, small idols. You think about the small made up with some mud. You will see some idols. There are some 10 Ganesh idols are there. How that Ganesh 10 idols are there? There are different, so many types of Ganeshas. One Ganesha sit in flower, one Ganesha sit in sat on his vehicle, that mouse, and then one Ganesha might stand in standing position, something like that. Different Ganeshas are there. You just think about one Ganesha. One Ganesha, you liked it very much, especially. There are 10 idols are there, same. First of all, how they made that Ganesh idol?
Using mold.
Exactly. First of all, they will make a mold. So that mold will define what is the height of the idol should come, and how that ideal should get outcome. What is the, it should make it in some flower Ganesha or some mouse Ganesha, standing Ganesha, sitting Ganesha, whatever it is, and how many ornaments Ganesha should have, and on the crown it should be like gold model crown or some cloth or whatever it is. Finally, that everything you will plan and you will make some molding first. You will make a mold. From the mold, you can create multiple instances, multiple ideas. Now, by using the same mold, I can just instantly, I can create 10 ideas. Now, physically, how many ideas are made? By using that mold, I made 10 ideas.
10.
Now in front of you, you can see one mold plus 10 Ganeshas, isn't it?
Yes.
Those 10 Ganesh. So, will you go and buy a mold or will you buy a Ganesh idol?
Ganesh idol.
Ganesh idol only. We don't buy the mold. We'll buy the. So now in front of you, you can see there is one mold plus 10 Ganesh idols. Exactly. That mold is your class. It is not an object. It is a class. It's not an idol. We don't worship to that mold. Right? It is a class. Basically, it contains the definition how exactly the output should come out. And now I have made 10 idols. Those 10 idols are your 10 objects. Now, physically, you have 10 instances which you can touch with your hand. Exactly in your program also, you have 10 objects. And by the way, all the idols made out of that mold looks like same or looks different?
Same.
Exactly same. 100% same. Just the only difference is that for one ideal, you can apply red color. Another ideal, you apply blue color. Another ideal, you apply green color. And for one ideal ornaments, you put gold color. For another ornaments, you change. So each object will have its own values while representing that, but they're all same. All ideals made come out of that mold are the same. They look like the same. But every ideal is different. Every ideal is different. Every ideal is having its own properties. He can have his own colors. All maybe in red color, or all 10 ideals can be in 10 different colors. That every object can carry on its own. Those are called attributes. Attributes are individual to every object. So ornaments I can change different colors in the sense different value I'm putting in. Ornament colors I'm changing, but the ornament style remains the same. So all these 10 objects which are created from the same mold are same, looks like same. And but still they are 10 different ideals. That's not one ideal. Like that, from one class, if I create 3 objects, they're all same in size. That means if one object has employee ID, employee name, employee PAN number, like that properties, other objects will not have customer ID, customer name, customer phone number. No, they're all employee objects. That means all objects are having the same attributes. Values are different. Don't confuse with attributes and values team. Each attribute will have value. Each attribute will have value. Like my PAN. PAN is an attribute. That value of my PAN is different, value of other PAN is different. That molding from which we have generated these 10 ideals, that molding is called class. From the class, we are instantiating n number of instances. Now, by using that Ganesh ideal, that Ganesh molding, how many ideals you can make?
As many as we want.
Perfect. Absolutely. Here also as many objects as you wanted. Now, that Ganesh idol is a 2 feet, just 1 feet, 1 feet Ganesh idol. Now, I wanted to make some 3 feet Ganesh idol with not with 4 hands, but with 8 hands. Earlier, Ganesh was 4 hands. Now, I wanted a 3 feet Ganesha idol with 8 hands. And also, one big hill should come and he has to sit on top of that hill kind of thing. Then first, what should I do? Can I make one more Ganesh idol?
Make a mold.
We'll create another mold.
Exactly. You have to take another mold because here your requirement is completely different. This is no more employee object. This is a car object. Your purpose altogether is completely different thing. You have to make a new mold. First, you have to make a new mold. From there, you can create n number of instances, n number of ideals. Here also, you have to create a new class. First, you create a new class. Don't think like once if you have a class, you have the object. No. Once if you have the mold, do you think Ganesh ideal is also there? Mold is only mold, right? You have to generate the ideal. Agree?
Yes.
You have to generate. How many ideals you generate? That many are only there. If you generate three ideals, you have only 3 ideals. That means you have only 3 objects. As many as you want, according to your requirement, you will generate. First, you have to create a mold. Like that, first you have to create a class. Inside that class, you will mention, these are all the attributes my objects should have. These are all the methods my objects should have. So what your objects should have, that will be first defined in the mold. Then all the objects will have that same set of things. So inside your mold, how you prepare things like that, inside your class, you will prepare, okay, these are the attributes should be copied for every of my object. These are the methods should be available in every of my object, because your object is completely getting generated based on the mold, based on the class. So it is a copy. Earlier somebody said like a blueprint or something. Exactly, mold is also like a blueprint. From there, the real prints will come out.
What sets ZaranTech apart in SAP corporate training? It's our unique blend of expertise and innovation. We offer customized courses tailored to each client's needs, ensuring relevant, targeted learning. Our vast trainer database brings you wisdom from the best in the field. Need resources? Access our extensive training material repository anytime. We are all about measurable results, providing detailed student metrics to track progress. And we don't just teach, we build community. Join our thriving social media network, connecting learners beyond boundaries. With ZaranTech, you are not just training, you are transforming your SAP expertise.
And when we are printing marriage cards or something else also, we'll prepare that stencils. That stencil will contain the exact definition. Then as many copies you are making out of that stencil, all copies remains the same. Then here also from the class, once if the class is created, we will start building number of objects around it. So we have to create a class first. How do we create a class? There are 2 ways. There are 2 types of classes we can create. One is called local class and the second thing is called global class. Very simple difference. Inside a program, like in SAP ABAP, you are writing a new program. Instantly then and there you can create a class first. And for that class, you can create objects also. But that class and that objects you can use only in that program, nowhere else outside. That class you cannot use in other places, because that class is created only for that particular program purpose. In that program only, you will use that class and you will use the objects of that class in that program itself. That is called local classes. A local class is a class which you have created inside a program so that you can use that class only in that program. Other way, there is a global repository. You can create a class like a global class. There is a transaction code called SC24. I will show you on the screen all these things. Once if you create like a global class, then you can create the objects of that class in any of your programs. Not only that, all of your friends, colleagues, all of them also can use that class for creating objects for their programs also. In their, whenever they want, wherever they want, they can use your class for generating objects. Once the molding is ready, anybody can create objects out of that molding team. But is that mold is there inside only for you, inside a program? That is a local mold. You can only use in that program only you can use. And you yourself also cannot use in any other program that belongs to you. But if it is created like a global class, then you can use that mold, you can use that class in any of your programs. And not only that, even others also can able to use that class. That is the only difference. Other than that, remaining all same. That is called local classes and global classes. Exactly the same concept will apply for interfaces also. Interface also is exactly equal to a class, except one small difference. We will talk about that soon. We will get into that. Interface also is a class, except one small difference. We will discuss that. Now try to summarize what is called class now. Now you tell me what is class in your own words.
A class defines the methods and attributes for the objects.
For the last word I did not get. Class defines the attributes and methods for
Objects.
Exactly. How many objects we can create?
N number of objects.
As many as you can.
How many classes we can create?
According to our requirement, we can.
Right, team. According to our requirement, how many Ganesh models you can create? As many as you want. From each molding, how many Ganesh ideals you wanted to make? As much as you want to. Exactly. You compare these two with this concept. So it is a definition. Class is a definition. It contains the definition of attributes and methods, and all the objects getting generated from the same class will behave in the same way because they're all derived from the same class. So they will have their own set of values. Each object will have its own set of values, but they're identical because they're all generated from the same class. But if I have two classes and if I have two different objects, certainly one is a very small object and one is a very big object. Employee object is different, car object is different. Car object is different, train object is different because they're all getting generated from different classes. How many attributes and how many methods will be there inside a class is depend on your requirement. Every class may have 100 attributes and 100 methods also, 5 attributes and 5 methods also, only 10 attributes and 2 methods also, 0 attributes but only methods, or so many attributes without any methods. Absolutely, all possible combinations are okay. Every class can have attributes, can have methods also. But this is for other programming languages. But when it comes to ABAP, there is another component also there inside your class. We discussed attributes and we discussed methods. There is other component also there inside that shell that is called events. A class can have events also, but that is little advanced, not required at this moment. But definitely we will discuss that point as well. Now, in this one you will not see in other languages too. In ABAP only you will see that. ABAP classes will have these three types of components within them. Attributes, methods, and another special component is there that is called events. Because it is a business programming language, for some particular purpose and reasons, we have this component also, events, but we will talk about that after a while. So we will summarize in a more presented way of these things, whatever we discussed it. And also at the same time, I will show you these things on the system also in developing of the classes. I know some of you have already created these things earlier, but we will, try to frame that in a proper order, the way how we discussed, right? So ABAP objects is the object-oriented extension of ABAP, because initially ABAP was not object-oriented language, but later it became like an object-oriented language, very much similar to your Java language. Okay, so basically any object-oriented language, if you wanted to learn, two things you should know. One is classes and the second one is interfaces. ABAP objects is based on classes and interfaces. And what they will have, classes and interfaces will have attributes and also methods as the components. Components means what is there inside, that is called components. So they have attributes and also methods. Both will be there. Like I said, class and interface both are equal, except a very small difference. Okay, until then you treat both of them as equal only. Once if you come to know the difference between those two, you can realize, okay, why it is like that. You can able to compare. So objects are created from classes. See, all these statements very sensible, very carefully, so that when somebody asks any question, you can exactly frame it out. It is collection of objects. Class is collection of objects. No, class is not collection of objects. Morning, some of the definition we try to frame like that. No, class is not collection of objects. Now you see, Ganesh idle and Ganesh mold. Now Ganesh idle, Ganesh mold, how do you define? Class, how do you define? Is it collection of objects? No, that is completely different meaning, different sounding. 10 Ganesh idols are different, one Ganesh mold is different, right? So class is basically the definition. It's not collection, it is a definition. Definition of the object. And multiple instances we can generate from one molding. Multiple objects we can generate from one class. So objects are created from classes and they are accessible by using the reference variable. What is called a reference variable? I will tell you this. And polymorphism. It is also one of the advantages, but we haven't seen what is that, how it works exactly. Encapsulation we discussed it, but the other two advantages like inheritance and polymorphism, it will come. And apart from that, apart from attributes and methods, we have another component also is there inside our classes that is called events. And when do we create event and how do we use event? It will come later. But we have other component also called events. So there was ABAP world before even ABAP objects. Of course, ABAP was there before. After that only ABAP became ABAP objects also. Object-oriented enabled program. The same thing in procedural programming, any functionality if you wanted to establish some kind of reusability of the code, you will create that as like a function module. You will create a function module in your ABAP program by using function name, and function. And that function module we will call in our programs as many times as you want by using the statement called call function. Like that, exactly the same thing. Instead of functions, here we are using the methods that are there inside your class. Method is also pretty much looks like your function. Method, instead of a function and a function, you will have method and a method. Instead of a call function, here you will have call method. But method is basically associated inside a class in order to handle the attributes of the objects of that class. So how can we create a class? We can create classes locally or globally. There is a beautiful documentation, help documentation available in SAP system that also you can go through. So this is talking about the documentation part. This slide, some of the slides I'm skipping here, those are not required. Normally in ABAP, these are all the standard data types we have: character data type, date data type, time data type for defining the objects. Like that, when you compare, you will create various types of objects also, like internal tables, structures, you will create. At the bottom of the screen, if you see objects, the yellow colored and gray colored, if you see, so classes is basically like a data type. Class is a data type, object is a data object. So data type defines what you can store in a data object. What is the normal definition between data type and data object? Not about objects, not about class objects I'm talking about. Normally, generally, data type and data object, two types of things you will see, right? So character type, date type, these are all called data types. So data type describes the characteristics, and every data object is derived from a data type. If the data object is derived from a character data type, that means you can store only characters in that data object. If the data object is derived from date data type, then you can store only date values. So what you can store in a data object is defined inside the data type. That is a relation between data type and a data object in general terminology. So data type describes the characteristics, data object will hold the values corresponding to the data type from which it is derived. Similarly, your objects hold the values. But what you can store inside an object, that is defined inside the class. What you can store inside an object? Can I store employee data, or can I store customer data? Can I store material data? Inside that object is depend on from which class that object has been derived. Because that class defines the characteristics of the object. At the bottom of the screen, you see your classes is playing the role as a data type. Your objects is playing the role as a data object. So ABAP objects introduced with the ABAP version, ABAP, these are all ABAP versions still, obviously to call in the release version 4.5. After that, inheritance, dynamic invoking, and all added in 4.6 version. And object services, shared objects, friend classes that are all added in corresponding versions of ABAP 6.1, 6.2, 6.4. Now from ABAP version 7.0, ABAP became the complete object-oriented programming. All things, what is there in Java, those things are there in ABAP also, from the object-oriented perspective. It became 100% full-fledged object-oriented programming from the ABAP release 7.0. Almost I can say from year 2006, 2005, 2006, around that was the time frame. ABAP 7.0, we could notice. From there onwards, so more than a decade of time, right? It's a full-fledged object-oriented development language. So the differentiation between procedural programming and object-oriented programming we discussed. So I'm not elaborating every slide with you. Later I will share this material. You can go through for more reading and more understanding. And how do we define a class? So a class you will define in two stages. It will take place in two parts. One is class definition and one is class implementation. I will show you on the screen. You can create a class locally inside a program. On the left-hand side, you can see. So that is called a local class. From the class pool also, that is global class. From SE24, you can create the class globally. So global classes you can use everywhere. Local class you can use only in that program. So what will be there inside an object? You see, I told you, you think like a shell, you think like an egg. If you open that, you will see some content inside. So what you will see some methods and you will see some attributes inside your object. So objects are based on classes. Classes simply we can define like a template or type, data type. It is a data type or a template for creating data objects. So classes are the templates or the types, data type for the objects. In order to use objects, you must know what is the class, from which class that object is derived, or at least the interface name. See, interface also came up here. If you wanted to play around an object, you should know what is the class name of that object. You will anyhow come to know that, or at least the interface. You can find all the available classes, whatever the standard classes SAP already created. You can see all of them in the class library from SE80 or from SE24. You can see that. You can create objects from classes. You must use the reference variables to work with objects. Why? What is this reference variable? How to create a reference variable before we work with object? We will talk about that. And the concept of understanding this reference variable also very, very important. I will show you that in a small PPT just in a few minutes. So global class, if you wanted to create, you can use the transaction code SE24 for that. There you can go and you can create a class. From documentation, SAP standard help documentation is also available. You can go through that. Or come to know more details about. So the screenshot currently you are watching is describing some global classes. When standard classes, you will not find with Z, okay? G, it will not start with any custom classes. Obviously, you know, it will start with G. So CL underscore. So CL is indicating it is a class. That is a naming standard we follow. If you are creating your own custom class, we will follow the naming standard ZCL because it is a G class, right? Custom class. So G and GCL underscore something we'll write. Similarly, standard interfaces will start with IF underscore something. Any custom interfaces if we create, we will start with the ZIF, GIF, and we'll continue some naming. And the screenshot is indicating that how many attributes are there, how many methods are there, how many events are there, how many interfaces are implemented in this class. We will see all the details in the global class like this. We will see that in the screen as well. And when you see the methods, I told you what is the purpose of method. Each method is a mini program. It is that it is a person, you know, given a task to perform. is a person loaded with a specific task to perform. It is a code, responsibility given to perform. In order to make the job done, you have to call the method. That means you have to invoke the method. Then the job will be done. That means the code, what is written inside that method, will get executed. It may be 10 lines code, it may be 1000 lines code, which we don't know. But it is a well-defined piece of code that will get executed when you call the method. But when the code is executing, usually you will expect some input to forward. Hey, I'm giving a new age. You please accept this value and change the age value. I'm giving a new surname. Please accept and change the surname of the given employee. So you are expected to give some input parameters to the method. And once the method is executed, finally, you are expecting some output also come back to you from the method. That means every method is expecting some input from you, and also you're expecting some output back once the method successfully executed. So that means for methods, you will be defining some parameters, input parameters and export parameters. So input parameters are those which you are giving to the method while invoking the method. Once the method successfully executed, record successfully updated, employee is successfully changed, some update, some feedback, it can throw back to you. That is called export parameters. So every method will have some parameters. If you want, up to your wish, on the left-hand side, you can see that button for adding the required number of parameters for each of your method. Methods can have parameters. Few methods will have parameters. Few methods will not have any parameters. That's okay. Depend on your requirement. Then you will go for attributes. Then you will go for methods. When we are creating these methods, this is called visibility. For attributes, so I told you inside a class, you will have three components: attributes, methods, and events. For these three, we will be putting them in three different scope areas. For example, in a classroom, I'm keeping, there are about, you just think like there are 30 rows. Some people I'm keeping in the first 10 rows. Some people I'm keeping in the second set. Few people I'm keeping in the last set, in the last bench rows. Like that, I have arranged them purposefully, intentionally. We have made the arrangement like that. Few people I made them to sit in the first row. Few people I made them to sit in the middle rows. Few people I made them to sit in the last rows. Visibility. Because I wanted to keep my focus on this first row people very closely, because they're making so much of noise in the classroom. Whatever the reasons, purpose is there. For that, I made that arrangement like that. In the similar way, inside a class also, you will keep these components in three different visibility areas. Number one, public. We will discuss about that differentiation. Number two, protected. Number three, private. So where do you make them sit? Your attributes, your methods, and events. These three can be following any of these places. First row or middle row or the last row, your wish. Depend on the purpose. Once if you understand the definition, you can able to justify that. So few methods, few attributes, I will keep it in the public section. Similarly, few attributes and few methods, I will keep it in the protected section. And few attributes and few events, I will keep it in the private section. My choice. While I am creating the class, I will decide that. Who should fall in which section? But these are the three different visibility sections: public section, protected section, and private section. Who should fall in which area depends on the project requirement, depend on your application development, it will change. But you must know the differentiation. You must know the differences between these three. Then you can able to judge it correctly. Okay. So if you see all these methods, I have put in the public section only. As per the screenshot, it is up to you. We'll talk about that. But for your initial understanding, let us read these lines. Public methods can be called by everyone. Okay, that is about the visibility section I said. There is another way of differentiation also, that is Another level of the method, it is basically called classification. There are two types. We can classify the components of a class in two ways. Visibility scope is different. As I said, visibility scope is deciding where they are sitting. According to that, the way you can access them, the way you can see them is changing. But nature, the type, here, there are two types. In two levels, we can again further categorize them. Those are called instance and static. We call it like instance components and static components. This is different from the visibility. It is simple like this. In my college, day scholars and regular students, a few students, basically it is an engineering college. We have a hostel facility also there in the college. A few students are staying inside the campus hostel, but few students are not staying inside the campus, they are staying outside. Okay. So for those who are staying inside the campus, we have a different uniform. Just think like that. We have a different uniform for them. And those who are, because those who are staying inside the campus only should access our, food court and other things only for them. So it is difficult for my other staff members to identify that when outers are also coming up. So that for that purpose, what they made is like they maintained a different uniform. You think like that. And few who are staying outside the campus, like they themselves only have to take care of their food and other requirement, transportation and other things. They have a different uniform. You just think like that. So these are the two ways we classify: who are staying inside the campus hostel, and who are staying outside. And they are just daily coming by their own transport and getting into college and remaining all same. Once they come into my classroom, I am again making them sitting in different rows. That is visibility. The visibility is different. But the classification here is talking about the level or the type. That is two types. I just said instance and static. You remember these two words, you will be able to see the difference. Instant, because those who are going to my food court and ordering some food, for those who are staying inside the campus, we are not charging anything. But those who are not wearing that uniform, I'm actually charging them for the food if they consume anything, because we have to charge them because it is not part of they haven't paid anything. But these other kids who are staying inside the campus, it is inclusive cost, so that even if they go to food court and if they offer lunch or dinner, anything, we are not charging anything from them. And I am identifying them because they're all wearing a different uniform. Here also, they're all students, but just two, we classified them into two groups. Here also, instance components and static components. That means inside a class, you will have maybe instance attributes, instance methods, instance events. You can have like that. What is the other classification? Static. You will have static attributes, static methods, static events. Your choice. All of them again will fall in public section. All of them can fall in protected section. All of them can fall in private section. Visibility is different. Label is different. We will talk about that. Let me introduce the namings first here. Then differences you will understand. So components are two types: instance components, static components. They can fall in three different visibilities: public section, protected section, and private section. For now, keep it there. We'll come back. And also we have a special, very, very special method that is called constructor. We will see how do we use constructor with an example. And every method will have some parameters also, input parameters and output parameters. You will have attributes, instance attributes or static attributes. You see, the label is created in the screenshot. The label is given, all of them are instance attributes. And the visibility given, all are public eye given. Our wish. According to the requirement, we will keep them. Public attributes can be used by everyone. read-only attributes cannot be changed from the outside. Instance attributes need an object. Attributes are typed with some specific data types from your ABAP dictionary or with the built-in types. Then finally, the reference variable concept. So let us write a simple program to work with the class team, and then we will discuss. Let me zoom in again further. Let us see one simple class creation. And after that, I will give you one exercise also for you to perform. So CS underscore demo 1. Do not desktop access. I didn't like this browser one. Okay, team. So here we can able to create our programs, keyboard.
Our comprehensive student metrics ensure top-notch learning experiences. We track engagement through attendance, participation, and video interactions. Performance is measured via quiz scores and assignment submissions. We monitor learning behaviors, including time spent and revisit patterns. Our metrics cover social learning, course completion rates, and even post-course success. With technical data on platform usage and device information, we optimize every aspect of your learning journey.
I'm feeling a little uncomfortable to work on this browser, but we'll change that tomorrow. I will use the normal RDP access only. All right. So if you want to work with a class, so first let us create a local class here, team. So local class means inside a program you are creating. So you can use that only in this program. Other places you cannot use that class. That's okay. Sometimes according to the need, we'll do that. Similarly, we'll create one global class also. Let us take one employee only as an example with a few attributes like employee ID, employee name, and employee age, and employee company. 4 attributes I do take: ID, name, age, and company. So if that is a requirement for carrying 4 attributes and few methods of a class to be created, how do we work on that? First of all, a local class when you are creating, right? Local class creation will take place in 2 parts. Number 1, class definition, and number 2, class implementation. So it will be like this. Class, you have to provide your class name. Let me take like employee as a name of the class. Class employee definition. You will be writing, and here you will write and the class. Over. So with this, definition part is over. Next, but not yet completed, you have to make another part also. As I said, like it will take place in 2 parts. You have to go with implementation also. Again, class employee, implementation, you do right, and end class. In these 2 parts, you have to complete. This is called one single class totally you are making. The name of your class is employee. That means you are making the molding first. Ideals will come later. First, you make the molding completely, perfectly. Class definition and class implementation. You understand the skeleton? Now go to the definition. In the definition part, now we can create some components. Here we have to add the components. What are called components? Some of your attributes, some of your methods, some of your events. These are all called components of a class. We can add them. How many attributes you want? How many methods you want? How many events you want? I said 4 attributes. I'm planning. I can add more attributes also if I want. So initially, let me start with 4 attributes: employee ID, employee name, employee age, and employee date of birth. So employee company. Like that, I wanted to take it like 4 attributes, right? These are all called components, which can be your attributes, which can be your methods, which can be your events. Let me remove this. So how do we define them? As I said, there are 3 rows where you wanted to arrange the people inside the classroom. You have to. Those are called public section. Then go for protected section. Then go for private section. Let's define the classes first, sections first. Usabilities. Now you put all of them in public section, absolutely fine. You put everybody under private section, that is also fine. But you will start observing the differences. You will start realizing, oh, now I understood. Now I should not make this guy sit in private section. I must make this guy go and sit in public section. Now I should make this attribute only in the private section. I should not make this in the public section. Like that, you will realize the importance. You will realize the need. Then accordingly, you will plan. Until then, you can play around with these things and you can work out. Normally, we will keep attributes in private section and methods in public section. Why? We will see that. Let me first define some attributes under the private section. So the attributes are employee ID, data employee ID of type some numeric character, size okay, of type N of 4 or C of 4. Let me take this. Okay, or let me take simply employee ID of type I. Then employee name, type C, length some 20 characters for each employee name. Similarly, every employee should have A's, again of type I. And every employee should have a name of a company, data, company, which company is with. I will tell why I have taken like that. Length, some company name, let me take 10. Like that, I have created attributes. So there's no specification like this is attribute. Normally, data means it is all attributes, which are all going to carry some data. Every object will have these 4 attributes commonly. Every object will have these 4 attributes. This is the definition inside the class. I'm making a Ganesh idol with 4 hands. I'm making a molding, I'm making a molding with 4 hands. Then will every idol will have 4 hands, or suddenly one idol will go with only 2 hands? What, Tim?
All will have the 4 hands.
Yes. Here, because I'm making the molding with 4 hands, so all the idols, obviously, suddenly one idol will not go with 2 hands. All the idols will have 4 hands, like these 4 attributes. This is the definition you are putting inside your molding. Then, in order to access these attributes, which I kept in the private section, we will create some methods in the public section and we will use them. For example, let me see, let me not have any methods here. I just created only attributes. Let me go for save it. My class definition is saved. Then class implementation, nothing I'm doing here. Usually, we have to write the code in the startup selection event. Okay? After that only, we should go with just define your class definition and class implementation, and then go for your main program. The main program will start with startup selection. Now I wanted to create, now class is completed. Class part is defined. These are the 4 attributes. Class definition, class implementation, both are done. Now, inside this, I wanted to use that class. So we will go for startup selection. Here, we will do work with objects. If you wanted to create an object of a class, what is your class name here?
Employee.
What is the object name? What is the object name here? What is the object name here?
The object is not yet created, right?
Right. Come on, team. You have to. Objects not yet created. Where is the names? Where is the name of the object? First of all, object I have not yet created. How many objects do you have in this program so far?
0 objects.
0. Let us create an object. If you wanted to create an object, you have to use a keyword called create. There are other syntaxes also. We will see. Create object is a keyword for creating an object. But before object creation, you have to have a special variable team that is called a reference variable. We will call. You have to create that. For that, this is the syntax. You have to first you have to create a reference variable. Without reference variable, we cannot create an object. Okay, I will tell the relation. How to create a reference variable first. Data E1. Any name, just any name you can. Data E1 of type reference to. This is the syntax. Data E1 of type reference to your class. When I said like this, so here E1 is called reference variable. This is not called object. Don't say E1 is an object. E1 is a reference variable. It is created with the syntax data E1 of type reference to employee. So you have one reference variable. The name of the reference variable is E1. Let me create another reference variable. Data E2 of type reference to employee. Employee is a class. So by using your class name, first you will create some number of reference variables. So how many reference variables you have here?
Right now, 2 reference variable we have created.
How many objects you have?
Currently 0.
0. You have 2 reference variables, but you have not created any objects yet. Notice that point. You have not created any objects yet. You have created only. Sorry?
May I know then what is the role of this reference variable?
We are coming to that point. You have created 2 reference variables, but you have not created any object yet. So you cannot store anything, you cannot keep anything, because object is still object not born. Still there is no object. Only you have 2 blank reference variables. Now let me create an object. Create object. I will say E1 of type employee. We will say like this. This one, usually this is the way how to write it, but the same thing, even in a shortcut manner, right? You can, I just commented that line, you can write like this also. Both are same. Create object E1 of type employee. I can avoid if I want, but it is recommended to write type class name also. It is good, but still even without writing that also, object is created. Now one object created, that object is pointing by E1 reference variable. Then what about E2? E2 is still a blank reference variable. It is still waiting. And how many objects you have now in the program? Tell me.
One
object.
One object, that is E1. So now E1 is a complete object. That means this object should have employee ID, employee name, employees, employee company. Yes, they all have in E1. If you can open E1, you can able to see that. All the attributes are there in E1. All employee attributes are there in E1. Let me see if I can show something. Let me show his name. E1 hyphen employee. I wanted to display his name. What is his current name? Right now, blank name, but let me show. It will not give you. Let us check for the errors. What it is saying, access to the private attribute ename is not allowed. Yes, because I'm trying to display the name of the employee, but I wanted to store some name. Right now it is blank. There is no employee name. I wanted to store some name and I wanted to show it on the screen. So E1 employee name is equal to Raz. I wanted to store, but still it will not allow. The reason is this employee name is created inside your class in the private section. Inside your class, it is created in the employee name is created in the private section. Once it is placed in the private section, you are not allowed. You see here, you cannot store a value. You cannot display the value. Check for the errors. Check for the syntax. It is saying the same thing. Hey, you are trying to use employee name, but sorry, that is a private attribute. You cannot use that. Now what I will do, instead of making this employee name in private section, this one I will cut from here. Control X. And let me put it in the protected section. Will there be a difference? Will I get? I removed him from private section and I made only employee name. Remaining all I kept it in the private section only. Only this one I shifted to protected section. Let me save it. Will there be a difference, team? Will it work out now? What's your guess?
It still won't work.
Why?
Because it's protected.
Means?
Protected means we cannot access it.
Yeah,
it
it's
also-
not. I think it's correct.
Sorry? Now, will this code work out or not? The question is, will this code work out or not?
I think this will work well.
This will work. Okay. Somebody said not work. Somebody said will work. That is good. What about others? See, what I made employee name, I changed it from private section to protected section. Earlier, private section, it not allowed me to store the name and to display the name directly. But now I shifted him to protected section. Now the question is, will it allow me to do this or not?
Yes.
It do not allow.
Why? Why so?
Because the variables which you have declared in protected section, they will be accessed only through subclasses.
Fantastic. So let me summarize. For this class team, you remember both private and protected both are same. Only the protected will bring the difference. The protected will altogether bring the difference when we are working with multiple classes, especially in the inheritance time. That time we will discuss. But until then, protected and private, as long as you are working in this class, they both behave in the similar way. So no difference. Even if you put it in the private section or the protected section, they both treat that attribute as a private attribute only. So as long as it is a private attribute, definitely it will not allow you to access. But the difference, the exact difference between private and protected will come into play when we are dealing with inheritance, when we are talking about inheritance. I will tell at that times. Let me check these errors again. Let me check it again. Still, protected attribute is not allowed. Earlier it said private attribute not allowed. Now it is saying protected attribute also not allowed. Yes, because they both behave like the same way as like private only. It's not making me any difference. Now what I will do, I will cut this attribute from here, from the legs, and let me put it in the public section. I made it here. Then if I check these errors, then it is not showing any errors. And if I activate the code and if I run the program, so now RAS value stored and the RAS value I got here as an output also. I could able to store some value and I can able to access that value also in the output screen when that particular attribute is available in which section?
Public section.
Public section. But what about other attributes? Other attributes also falling in the private attributes like employee ID is company. What about these things? So these things also should I keep it in the public section? Of course, if you wanted to store and access, you should keep them in the public section. But we want to do that. Why? Because by keeping in public section, what will happen is, let me just show this example. I said employee is also next fall in the public section. Then here in the program, as like name, let me store some A's also. E1 A's is equal to 55 A's. I stored the name as RAS, A's value 55. Then let me show that output. I'm displaying the name, I'm displaying the A's of E1, of the employee one. So I have no errors because both are public section. Activate it. I can store the values, I can change that. When I execute the code, yeah, his name is Ras and age is 55, working fine. But here, the age value I stored like -44. Let me check for the errors. That's fine. Let me activate the code. It's fine. And when I run the program, and the employee age is showing -45. Of course, minus symbol will come right side. How? It should not. It should not take the age value as -45. But still it will take, because it is just like a free fall variable. Anybody can play with that. Anybody can change any value accidentally, intentionally. But why do we keep minus value? Of course, maybe due to some calculations or due to some misplacement of values also it may happen. Accidentally also may happen, but should not happen. I don't want my program should be so robust. That is called robustness. No matter what, the age value never be negative. If you develop this kind of application, no one will recognize that as like an application, as like an IT application. It should handle the robustness. How? We are not basically, this is not the advantage we are talking so greatly about object-oriented programming team. This is just simply like accessing, like working like a procedural programming. This is not at all the right approach. Then what do we do? First of all, we don't keep these attributes. We don't keep these attributes in the public section. Let me remove these two also. Control X. Let me don't put anything in the public section. Let me keep all of them under my private section as usual. Then no one can touch them. No one can access them. We put it. Okay, formatting and all second. But again, we cannot change. In order to handle them, to store some values within them, to display their values, what do? We will define some methods here. In the public section, we will create some methods. For that methods we have. Why am I writing method in the public section? If I write the method in the private section, still the same story. You can write a method in the private section, but after that, what will happen? Even that method also you cannot access, you cannot call, because it is falling in private section. Whichever is falling in private section, you cannot call. So will you keep the method in the private section? Definitely no. You will put it in the public section because you wanted to call that. And by the way, you will access the attributes because that method is also part of the class. Method is part of the class. So method can access private attributes, but you yourself cannot access private attributes directly, as I have shown before. But method can access because method is a internal part of the class. So method, they all behave like this. Difference only will come for the usaging. Internally, they are all equal. Internally, anybody can play with any one of them. So methods will handle all the attributes internally inside the class, because method is also part of the class, attribute is also part of the class. For them, they're all equal. Only for you, only the difference will come. Let me create a method here. Methods, for example, set employee is a method where I wanted to store some details of employee object. So set employee, I have put in just a method, no parameters. And let me create another method. Methods get employee. When I said get employee, I wanted to display. This is my keyboard. I wanted to display all the employee details. Similarly, let me take another method for changing the age. Methods change age. So this is another method. Like that, you define as many methods you want for every of your individual requirements in order to handle your attributes. Now, once if you define the methods, with corresponding input parameters, output parameters, etc., everything, then you can able to write some code in that methods. But where do we write? We don't write that. Here just we will create the name of the methods. Right now I have created 3 methods, but of course none of them have any parameters. We will add the parameters also, but we have to write the code for all these methods. Where do we write the code? That we have to do in the implementation section. Here we don't write attributes for a public, protected, nothing. Just for every method, we have to write the code here. We have 3 methods. Let's write the code here. Simple. What is the first method? Here we don't write methods, just only method. Method set underscore employee. Let's write the code for this method and end method over. And what is the next method? Get employee. Method get employee. Write the code and finally close it. Done. And we have another method also. Method changes. Is change or changes? What is the name I taken? Change underscore yes. Yeah. Method change underscore is. Let's write the code and end method. So the code, the logic of each method, you do write in the implementation section. Now let us write the code for every of these methods. And by the way, all these methods are falling in public section so that you can call them. Now let us write the code for these methods. Set employee. So I wanted to set some initial data for every employee object. Let me say employee ID is equal to whenever I'm creating a new employee, I wanted to keep employee ID as like 999, something like that. And when a new employee joined, that employee name, I'm keeping like XXXXXX like this. Then employee is, I wanted to keep like employee is by default we are keeping like 21, just think like that. And company, employee company, I wanted to store like TCS. I have given some values to be stored when I am accessing, when I am calling this method will store these values in these attributes. Employee ID, employee name, is, company, like that. These are all the attribute names. You see that? These are all the attribute names of the class. That is a code. Similarly, what is the code I wanted to write for get employees? It is listing all the details. For example, when I call this method, you just imagine that it is displaying the details like this, right? It is showing employee ID. Employee ID value it is displaying.
ZaranTech's SAP training delivery is a well-crafted journey. We start with a discovery call to understand your needs, followed by a tech call with a certified instructor. Our customized curriculum leads to live, interactive training sessions with hands-on labs. Access course materials through our learning management system anytime. We track your progress with detailed metrics and conclude with a fun, gamified final quiz. Upon completion, receive a verifiable certificate. With ZaranTech, your SAP training is not just comprehensive. It's engaging, practical, and tailored to your success.
Like that, it is displaying some messages. Then finally, it is displaying some stars kind of thing on the next line. So this is the code we written for get employee. Like that, for changing the employee age for the given employee, if I wanted to change the age, there is a method also. But this method, whenever I am calling this method, I must pass some value because some new value I wanted to set. That means this method is having a parameter. Let us add that parameter here. Earlier, when I declared the method, I did not add any parameter. Now I will add here. So change is, so it is having one importing parameter. Importing, what is that? New is parameter name of type I. That's it. So that method is importing a value from you. That value it is importing into one parameter name called new is. That new is value, it should change it in the existed is. So now accordingly we will write the code. Now the first two methods not have any parameters, but the third method is having a parameter, only one parameter, and that is also importing parameter. There are no exporting parameters. We can add that also. Now here you don't need to write all of them again, just only in the declaration only. Here simply just you have to write the code. So that A is equal to existed is I'm changing with new is. Existed is I'm changing with the new is. So now three methods are coded, programmed. Now here employee name, employee is, you cannot call them directly because they are fully restricted in the private section. So we can only call the methods. Let us call. So first object is created now. Employee one object is created now. Let me first see what is the data there inside. E1. So what is the method we have? Get employee. I didn't store. I just wanted to see what is the data inside the method. I mean inside the object. In E1, what is the current employee ID, employee name? All will be the default values, blank values will be. How do you call a method? Just a method name, bracket begin, bracket close. So check for the errors. Absolutely good. Activate the code. Execute it. Now employee ID 0, employee name blank, employee is 0, company name blank, finally stars. Fine. Because we didn't store any data in employee, just it is a blank object. Now let me store some data. In E1, I wanted to store some data. If you wanted to store some data, there is a method. What is the method name we created?
Set employee.
This way we can call. There is other way of calling also the method. Okay? Like this, you can do call method. You can do like this. First syntax also fine. Second syntax call method. E1 set employee. Just you don't require to put any brackets here. Try to see the difference between two different notations. You don't require to put the brackets when you do like this. If not, the above way you have to call. So now I set some data. After I set some data, let me see whether that data really stored or not. So if you wanted to check that, again, you have to call this get employee to see the data. Initially, it is blank. Now I set some data. And after that, let me see what is the new data is there. So once again, I'm calling the get employee method. I called it. Set employee, and then I call the get employee. Activate it. Activate it. Execute it. Now, initially, this is the data, but after I set some data in that one, employee ID 999, employee name all X, employee is 21, company name TCS. So the data successfully stored in the object. The data successfully stored in this object by using this set employee method. Because of that, I could able to retrieve that data once again back by using this method get employee. Now I wanted to change the years because we have a change age also now. Let us see, is it really changing the age? Right now the age is 21 of that employee E1. Or let me change that value to some other one. So I wanted to call that. So call method E1. The method name is change age. Of course, that method is having an importing parameter, right? So compulsory from here you should export. Exporting. What is the parameter name? New underscore is. For that, what is the value you wanted to give? Suppose I wanted to give the value 55. Let me see, is that value really applied and got changed on my employee one object? If you wanted to do that, once again, you call the get employee method. Call method E1 get employee. I just wanted to show the data again. So that is an importing parameter for which I have exported a new value. The new age value I given to 55. Let me check for the errors. Activate it. Execute. So initially his age was 21. Now, if I scroll down to the list, now his age got changed to 55. But what I will do there, instead of 55, let me give 555, 555 years old. Of course, it will take that value and it will process your code. Now, earlier his age was 21. Now his age changed to, let me scroll down. His age where that employee is from 21, it got updated to 355. Not solvable. What we will do there? Simply, it depends on how you written the code. Now, I will check it in my code. So here, how you written the code for that method changes. Let us go to the coding where you implemented the code. In the code, I said like just that new year's value, I'm directly assigning to years. Why should I do like that? Let me check if that new year's at least is greater than or equal to 21 and less than or equal to 61. Then only it should get assigned. Otherwise, no. So I given 555, but still the 21 remained as 21. I called in the program. So you see here, I called in the program. In the program I given 555, but still even it did not change. The 555 not change. But now instead of 555, let me give the age value 50. Activate it. Let me run the code. Now originally his age was 21, but now I given 50 now. Now that age 50 taken. So 50 taken and updated, but when I give 555, it not taken because that method is validating. Just one simple, it is validating if things are all in place. If it is negative value, if it is minus 40, minus 50 also, whenever it is not satisfying the criteria, it is not assigning. It is not changing the attributes. So it is not something like whatever you give, it can be taken up. Like that, we can ensure the accuracy of the data of the attributes by letting methods only to do that change, not by you. If you are allowed to do, if it is a public attribute, you can just give the value as it is. If you give 5,000 also, it will take, as long as it is a public attribute. But now it is not a public attribute. It's a private attribute. So you cannot change it directly. If you wanted to change, the only option is you have to call the method and you have to give the value to the method. And that method will do all the checks. When all the conditions are satisfied, then only it will change. Otherwise, that method also will not change. By that way, we can ensure the consistency of the data, accuracy of the data. This is the concept called encapsulation. Most of the people knows that object-oriented programming has 3 pillars: encapsulation, inheritance, polymorphism. Like that we will speak up. But what is exactly encapsulation? This is the one. Ensuring the security of the data by keeping the attributes only in the private section and letting the public methods only able to handle them by taking the conditional precautions for ensuring the accuracy of the data. Is the concept called encapsulation. Here, for storing the data in employee 1, I called the method called setEmployee. I called a method called setEmployee, right? But instead of for setEmployee also, I wanted to provide some parameters, like I wanted to give some values which should be assigned to the object. So let me take set employees also is having some importing parameters. Importing, for example, parameters underscore employee ID of type I. Parameter underscore employee name of type C. Parameter underscore is of type C. Sorry, type I. Parameter underscore company. So it has 4 importing parameters. That means I can pass 4 parameters. That values will be set so that value. So instead of giving some fixed values for every object separately, let me assign some values here. So employee ID value, I will initiate with the new value which I am receiving, parameters underscore employee ID, employee name, parameters underscore employee name, age value instead of 21, whatever value I'm giving, that value I will assign parameter underscore age. Company name also instead of TCS, I will give parameter underscore company, because that method is having that importing parameters. So here I will come down. So whenever I wanted to assign the values, you must know. So set employee should not be called like this because it has parameters now. Set employee, exporting, you have to export that parameters for employee. So let me give this employee ID as like Google one. Employee ID 101. Parameters for employee name Ras. Parameter underscore is this employee is 35 years old and he belongs to TCS. So these are the parameters of the method which we are passing company. Now, while initiating some values and passing some values, my own exclusive values, which I am changing, which age value also I'm changing. Finally, I'm displaying. Let us check for the errors. It's good. Activate the code. Execute it. So instead of 999XX, so some values I could able to store. 101 is name and RAS, age 35, company TCS. The same thing got displayed here. And of course, 35 years old already got updated with the age, new age called 50 also. It is all working fine. But this method I can call. What about the other object? Earlier, we created only one object. Second object we haven't created it. So still that is blank. Now, if I try to see the data, what will happen? Let me see what is the data in E2. As like E1, let me see initially what is the data is there in E2 also. Come on, tell me what will be the output for line number 86 and 87?
Output I think will be same because we are in class.
Sorry, your voice is not clear.
Output will be same, no?
Same means I didn't get you. If I say
Hello?
E2 get employee, yeah, if I say E2 get employee, what will be the output will come on the screen? At this line. Think properly, guess it properly.
E2 object is not created, right?
Sorry, object is not created.
See, team, here most of the times we will do this mistake in our developments. E2 is not a object yet. E2 is still a reference variable. It is just a reference variable. You don't think like E2 is another employee object. No. So if you try to call this, it will go to short to dump. It will give the error. Your program will goes to dump because You're trying to call a method with somebody who is not even an object. It is a serious thing. System cannot identify what is V2, where is E2, who is E2. He is not at all an object of an employee class. Whether blank ID, blank employee ID will come, blank employee name will come. Of course, all blank will come only when it is an object at all first. But here, E2 is not an object. If you execute this code, it will go to short return. Because he's not at even an object. We have to create him also as an object. Then he is also an object. Now, how many employee objects you have?
Two.
Exactly. Now, what is the output will come at line number 87 and 88?
Blank output.
Initial values of E1 and initial values of E2, right? Because just here objects are initiated. There is no employee data in E1, no employee data for E2 also. So they both will display the blank details only at first. So when I run the code, so this is the employee ID 1, this is the employee E1, E2. This is the E1 data, this is the E2 data. Both are showing blank, of course, because they're both just born as like a blank objects. And after that, you stored some data in E1. You stored some data in E1. You did not store any data in E2. In E1, you stored some data with the use of a method called setEmployee. But in E2, you haven't stored any data yet. All these things you did with only E1. E2 is just an object created, but there is no data inside that object. That's why we are getting the blank values. Normally, what we will do, we will have a method that is called constructor. You also know that, most of you know that. So constructor is a method which we will create inside a class. Usually it is a special, very, very special method. That method we don't need to invoke exclusively. That method will automatically get invoked whenever the object is getting created. So normally we will use that opportunity to store some default values, to store some initial values in your objects while the objects are getting created, because that method is anyhow getting invoked every time when you are creating a new object. Only one time when a new object is getting created. If you are creating 5 objects, that method also will call 5 times. But all other methods you have to call exclusively. But this is the method which you don't require it to call. It is automatically called by the framework, by the runtime internally. How do we create such method? That method we will use for instantiating the objects with some default values, or for any other purpose also you can use TIM. There is no rule that we have to use constructor only for storing some initial values in the objects. No, 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 no. That is the timing. That timing we can use for various purpose also. That timing we are using now for storing some default values in every of my object. How do we create such method? You go to methods first. Here you created in the public section, you created only 3 methods here. Set employee, get employee, change employee. Here you will create another method called methods constructor. Even if you want, you can pass parameters also to constructor. It is a parameterized constructor that is called. During that time, you must pass the parameter values while the object creation. In the create object statement, you have to pass. In case if there are any parameters, that is very careful. So methods constructor, enough. Here I'm not giving any parameters. Now let me come to the implementation section. In the implementation section, all the methods already implemented now. So this method also I will implement. Method constructor. End method. Now this constructor method I will use for storing some values. Constructor spelling okay. Let me use this method for storing some values, some default values. Employee ID, like earlier I was stored like 999, and employee name. Like I will keep it like ABCD. We have then employee age. I will keep all the employees age like 99, and company. I will use this to store some company name like XYZ. Later we will change to the actual names. So this is a method which we written. This method we don't call anywhere, but when you are creating the objects, you see here, create object. During that time, that method will call, that will store that values in E1. Again, when you said create object E2, again it will call, it will store that values in E2 also. So all these objects are getting instantiated with some default values. Now when I display here, earlier when I display, I got all the blank values on the 0, blank space, etc. Now all my objects by birth itself, they are getting instantiated with some values. So that values will come. After that, any other values you wanted to change, of course, you have that corresponding methods. Set employee is there. You can pass the parameters that will change in E1, that will change in E2. You can change the ages, etc. Activate it, execute it, and you see here, both of my objects, earlier it used to show blanks, but now they are loaded with some default data just by the time of object creation itself. That is happening because of the special method constructor, which we did not call anywhere exclusively. That is automatically invoked. Even for this constructor also, we can pass parameters. That is called parameters constructor. But we have to handle that very cautiously. Every time when objects are creating, in the create object statement itself, we have to pass the parameters. Otherwise, again, it will go to shutdown. For now, keep it up. Here in this example, in this demonstration, we have used all the instance attributes only team. These are all instance attributes and instance methods. Nowhere we used static component. But we will see that in the next session. Sometimes one of the methods suddenly I will change like this. I will write it like, I'm sorry, instead of creating methods, I will create a method here like this. Class methods. I just did like this. So what is the difference? This is created as methods, but this is created as class methods. This is called static method. All the other methods are instance methods, but this is called static method. Similarly, when it comes to attributes, instance attribute, instance attribute, instance attribute. But this attribute, what I will do is like I will create another attribute here with the name called class data. Class data, company. I will remove this. So I have 3 instance attributes, but 1 static attribute. Anyone has any idea, team? What is the difference between instance and static?
Yeah, for the static, we don't need to create an object. And the instance, we have to create the object.
To some extent, okay. But even, okay, I created objects also. In that case, I created 2 objects. Here, E1 and E2 I created. In that case, how do you differentiate static attribute and object instance attribute and static attribute? Can you differentiate what is the difference so far you understood or you identified, or do you know how the difference will come now? Because I created one attribute and one method as a static.
We don't need to call those static methods. It gets automatically executed.
No. That is wrong. No, that's not
Hello?
possible.
Hello?
That is not the definition for static. You cannot.
Static means if we have declared any static method, so we don't need to create an object for the particular class. We directly call that method without creating any object.
Okay, can I call with object? Okay, now I created, okay, I forgot that I created objects. Now can I call static method with my object?
No, with object we cannot call a static method.
We can?
We cannot call.
We can?
No. We cannot call.
Is it? Okay, let's see this method. What is this method? Static method we created here. Is it a static method? Yeah, of course. Right? Display company. It is a static method. Now let me write the code for that method also. Method display company and method. Then here let me display the company name. Your company name I'm displaying. So done. Now here let me call that method. Call method even display company. As like other methods, I'm calling this. Spelling mistake, display company. Okay, but here I will write out the name, company name wrongly. Display company here. Spelling mistake. Check for the errors. Company for a year. What is this?
Inside the method.
Then here I got your company TCS. On even I called that and I got that value here I displayed here. That method is actually static method. You see here, that method display company method is created as a static method here. How can I say it is a static method? Because here it is declared with the keyword called class methods. Whichever is created like class methods, it is a static method. Static method created, static method code implemented, but the end, that static method I called with my object only as like my all other methods. You see, get employee changes, get employee again, display company. I called it like as usual. Is this not called like static method cannot be called by object name? Can, right? Yes, we can. This static method is absolutely behave like your normal method only. That's what, Tim. Here and there, some assumptions will be there in your mind. So eventually that all will get erased, and definitely I will try to replace them with the actual right concepts by showing some examples like this. Yes, static methods absolutely are normal and equal to your normal methods, except one different behavioral difference. That behavioral difference, if you understand, then we can easily able to classify normal. So right now, though it is created as a static method, but still I can able to call that method as usual along with my object name. But then why static method we should create? Yes, that we have to now start think of. Then we will able to automatically phrase the definition for static attributes. and static methods also. Just like object is required, class is required, without object. Those are all practically true, but more than the practical sense, the concept wise, why it is there, the exact technical purpose. The more technical purpose you understand, then you can able to, when you're creating a class, if there are 10 attributes, you can able to decide 3 attributes as static and 7 attributes as instance. You can able to judge that properly if you know the technical behavior behind this concept.